The industry meets at Hunter, March 16 through 18 at the Signia by Hilton Atlanta. With more than 45 sessions, high profile speakers, and the all new networking hub, this is the home of hospitality. Secure your spot and register today at hunterconference.com.
Hello, and welcome to the CoStar News Hotels podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Simpson. The stage is set for Super Bowl 60. The NFC champion Seattle Seahawks will face off against the AFC champion New England Patriots in a rematch of one of the best Super Bowls of my lifetime, back when the Patriots eked out a 28-24 victory over the defending champion Seahawks back in 2015. This year's game will take place in Santa Clara, California, home of the San Francisco 49ers. 10 years ago, Santa Clara hosted Super Bowl 50 between the Denver Broncos and Carolina Panthers. Joining me on the podcast today is Colin Sherman, Director of Hospitality Market Analytics for Texas and the U.S. South for CoStar Group. Colin, thanks for being here. How are you?
Glad to be here, Trevor. Doing well. Thank you.
So Colin and I will spare the listeners from our hot takes on Seattle's stifling defense or the MVP case of Patriots quarterback Drake May, and instead discuss how hotel performance will likely fare in Santa Clara. It's an interesting market to discuss in this context. In recent years, huge top 25 markets that are more so geared toward capturing the leisure guests, such as New Orleans, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles, played host to the game, whereas the Santa Clara market captures a lot of that Silicon Valley business travel. Colin, let's start there. What can you tell us about the makeup of the Santa Clara market in terms of supply and the typical business it captures?
Yeah, I think it's important to start out that they're coming in kind of running ahead of its California peers. Our latest results, our performance results for the market, RevPAR is running around 4%, ADR is about 3% approximately, and occupancy is running about 1%. So all positive growth momentum, which kind of sets a high performance floor heading into January and February. Um, what this means for hotels and entering Super Bowl week, looks like they're not needing the event to fill rooms, but rather leveraging the event to lift ADR to peak levels. Let's benchmark Santa Clara against, or I should say, San Jose. That's the actual market that it's in. The last two Super Bowls. In Las Vegas, the Friday Saturday ADR during the Super Bowl last year, ADR hit about $750 with an 84% occupancy. RevPAR rose about 140%, almost entirely on rate. So New Orleans compressed a little bit harder on core nights, which would be Friday and Saturday leading up to the Super Bowl, and ADR topped roughly $800 with 93% occupancy. When we break that down and look at the CBD, which is the most concentrated submarket in New Orleans, and the CBD French Quarter to be exact, ADR actually was just under $1,000 with occupancy near 97%, with more than 10 hotels above $1,000 a night. So structurally, Vegas has about 4.6 times, we'll just call it an even 5 times the rooms, and 10 times the luxury inventory of New Orleans. And it comps rooms for gaming. We kind of heard that when we discussed Las Vegas or when we were watching all that. So this kind of softens ADR a little bit, but New Orleans doesn't. So the compression shows up cleanly in the data and in the rate. So I guess bringing that forward to Santa Clara and San Francisco, because they're so close to each other, I can't really say Santa Clara without mentioning San Francisco. I think the stadium corridor will see strong ADR-led RevPAR. I think, because it has a little bit thinner luxury tier hotels within that corridor, unlike New Orleans had, we might not see that huge lift in ADR, but it'll definitely be an ADR lift to RevPAR. San Francisco acts as a co-host with better nightlife that also sponsors that more leisure forward action that a lot of travelers, if they are going, are going to want. So it captures kind of that premium pricing, while Santa Clara monetizes its proximity to the to Levi Stadium. Um, so I think that's kind of where Santa Clara sits, although it's a very different market. Like I said before, it's kind of split into two, having San Francisco to its north. It's going to be kind of interesting. I guess the best way to kind of set it up too, I think it'll be much larger, but we could look at, the 49ers games on that as well to kind of get that at least at least set a bar. But I think this will be much bigger than a 49ers game.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest game. So we'll touch on the San Francisco market a little bit more in a little bit. But how has the Santa Clara market, generally speaking, how has it performed in recent memory?
Yeah, looking to Santa Clara, RevPAR is running at 4%, ADR is running at 3%. That's as of December on a 12-month basis, and occupancy is at 1%. So that momentum's already set. It's doing a lot better than its other peers. I think also the transient and group demand have definitely expanded from that corporate base, which is helping improve their activity overall. So, you also have this large return to office trend, in the past years, which has also fueled that midweek rise in transient demand. So they have been trending very, very well in the last few years. We haven't really seen too many dips.
Gotcha. The main takeaway each year I've done a Super Bowl story is the eye watering rates that host markets can push. You talked about it a little bit earlier about how it should be the same in Santa Clara. Will they come close to sniffing any records, or will it be a little more subdued compared to some of the past years?
Yeah, I think it'll be subdued to a Las Vegas for sure.
Hmm.
Might run, at what we saw happened last year in Las Vegas. But I think if we rewind to 2016 and look at
Yeah.
the San Jose market when they hosted Super Bowl 50, they posted about 130% RevPAR jump over the 3-day weekend on average.
Hmm.
ADR was roughly around $296 and occupancy was just over 70. So not like what definitely didn't have that compression, but I
Hmm.
think that plays into the larger a much larger market than what we saw to Las Vegas or New Orleans. And I'm just saying those because it's the most recent.
Right.
I think this will more play out like a Glendale, Arizona Super Bowl because it's very transit oriented game. So you're going to have a lot of people traveling in rather than compress it in one central place, like you saw in New Orleans and you saw in Las Vegas. Yeah, so I think really the comparable supermarket of ladder is really that Glendale, Arizona supermarket and what we saw there.
So, as promised, let's touch on San Francisco. So, Levi Stadium in Santa Clara is home to the San Francisco 49ers, even if it's more than an hour drive away from their marketed home city. Now, there are some public transit options to make the trek from San Francisco to Santa Clara, but with a famous popular leisure market like this one in the general vicinity, what kind of impact can we expect for San Francisco hotels for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and I think again going back, just to what we have and what we know. In 2016, San Francisco saw a much larger lift than even Santa Clara. They roughly saw about 186% RevPAR lift on that 3-day average. So that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. ADR was about in the mid 450s. So just to backtrack a little bit, Santa Clara or San Jose market was 296. San Francisco's 450. Now there is some different market dynamics there as well. San Francisco being much more expensive, um, but occupancy was north of 80% compared to 70% in the Santa Clara submarket. But yes, I think hitting on that transit part is there was quite a bit of, and I actually pulled some of the numbers from 2016 because I was curious how many people really used transit, and it was a lot. I mean, they have not only the Caltrain, the VTA, and the BART, but they moved huge volumes of fans, and it made staying in San Francisco extremely attractive, even as the game took place at Levi Stadium. And it's only about an hour commute south,
Mhm.
so it's really not too bad. And at that time, at least in 2016, and I'm sure it's going to be the same this year, you really saw all those transit companies. I mean, they were dedicated to moving Super Bowl fans in and out of the stadium.
I wonder if, like we talked about a little earlier, how Santa Clara is typically a business travel market, especially when you think about the weekdays leading up to the Super Bowl and length of stay for fans coming in, if there's just more available rooms in San Francisco than in Santa Clara. So you could see some demand to go to San Francisco for that reason, even if it isn't as close to the stadium.
Yeah, I think there's also that entertainment factor to San Francisco. Transit was such a huge influence and a huge factor because in 2016 there were 15,000 plus Caltrain riders on Saturday, close to 10,000 on the VTA into the stadium, and the BART was pushing, I think at the time, one of its highest ridership days ever.
Mm,
So that same setup is in place for 2026, and it absolutely supports San Francisco's pricing power. When fans can stay there for the nightlife, as we talked about, and
mhm.
hop on a train to the game and then go back that same night. Kind of that kind of versatile roundabout, right? So, yeah, that plays a huge part.
Well, also another point to make there, you brought it up before our call, how the Super Bowl experience is taking place in San Francisco February 3rd through February 7th. So that also will play a factor in terms of demand and fans who are planning for a little bit of a longer length of stay than just going for the weekend and maybe wanting to stay super close to the stadium.
Yeah, and that fan experience in San Francisco I think it starts on February 1st.
Okay.
So that's quite a lead up to Super Bowl. And just looking at, just doing a quick search on the internet, I think they reported 1 million people took part in that in 2016. So I'm sure we can expect the same this year.
Yeah. So this Super Bowl features some of the most rabid fan bases in the sport, as evidenced by their home field advantages, especially the 12s out in Seattle. I know it's not breaking news that fans will travel to see their team play in the Super Bowl, but is there any significance in the two teams being represented by Seattle and Boston fans?
I think the matchup actually helps us, the San Jose market and San Francisco
Okay.
market. With Seattle and New England, you're dealing with two national fan bases that fly in. Um, and they book multi-night stays and probably don't mind paying for proximity either.
Right.
Seahawk fans, as I think you might have mentioned before, they tend to they, at least based on 2016 and just kind of looking over some other larger games that they've participated in, they tend to book a little earlier and stay longer. Patriots fans lean more towards shorter nightlife focused stays, which pushes a portion of their volume likely towards San Francisco. But from a stadium market standpoint, having two long haul fan bases stabilizes the pattern across all 3 nights leading up, or I should say, 2 nights leading up to the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and probably more closer to, or at least closer to 4 nights. But yeah, they've showed, and I don't know if I saw this correctly, but Seahawk fans, they are known to travel for their team.
Oh, I believe it.
So I think that's also going to be just a major plus for the market.
Gotcha. Well, Colin, those were all the questions I had prepared for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Um, yeah, I think so. Like I always like to do just my final outlook.
Yeah.
Um, so the bottom line, the San Jose, Santa Cruz, California, I guess we could call it the Bay Area, um, wins on absolute RevPAR because of proximity. Even with a larger room base, which we didn't really touch on, but their supply has gone up a little bit too. I think it was 16% from 2016.
Hmm.
Um, and that's speaking just on San Jose proper, not with San Francisco, which their supply really hasn't, or their room inventory hasn't gone up that much.
Hmm.
Um, so all in all, San Francisco wins on a percentage growth, stronger ADR lift, fuller compression, and more spillover from those larger nightlife events. Two national fan bases plus a well-connected transit network set up a strong multi-night impact across the entire region. Um, but for the reasons, um, but the reasons for the lift differ definitely between the markets. But it'll all, it's all going to be a major lift, and I think it'll be an interesting one to watch too. We have to say the corporate. I was trying to come up with like a funny way to tag this Super Bowl as like the corporate bowl or something, and I couldn't do it. But just being that the area, the surrounding area is just so full of tech hubs and large industry names, Fortune 500 companies. That's definitely going to play into all of this.
Colin, who you got?
Seahawks.
I'm with you. I got Seahawks 24, Pats 13. Book it.
Oh man, yeah, I'm not going in the score, but yeah, I'll definitely stick with Seahawks. I'd like to see them win.
All right, Colin, thank you so much for joining the podcast, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, thanks, Trevor.
I'm Terence Baker, News Editor, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I'm the host of The Upgrade, a CoStar News Hotels podcast for the EMEA region. In it, I discuss with special guests the pressures, challenges, joys and exhilaration that comes with managing, owning and developing hotels in our glorious multifaceted industry. Discovering the EMEA region from the scenic northern shores of Norway to the heights of Table Mountain in South Africa, and most likely some chat about birdwatching, distance running and the English Premiership. Join us wherever you find your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify and on other platforms.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded and edited on January 29th, 2026. Head to costar.com/hotel news for more information on the global hotel industry, and look for all of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen.